Okay, so this week we are going to focus on the last type of design, which is mixed methods. So we've gone over quantitative research, qualitative research, and now mixed methods. So we're going to be building on both and putting them both together. And I know that this is the type of research that a lot of people have been really interested in reviewing your proposals. So to start, I'm going to go over the table that was included in chapter 2. The authors mentioned this just to kind of compare the different approaches to help you get your bearings about mixed research, how it relates to qualitative and quantitative, and when it might be most appropriate. So the first thing is the overall research purpose. And this is something that we really went over with the midterm. So quantitative research is confirmatory. The whole overarching purpose of quantitative research, no matter the particular type of design, is to confirm or reject hypotheses. And in qualitative research, it is exploratory or bottom up, generating information or knowledge. And mixed research does both. So there is an exploratory component and then a confirmatory component. So the ontology in terms of how nature or truth is understood. So quantitative is typically more objective, whereas qualitative is more subjective. And mixed researchers understand a pluralism and appreciation for both and their interrelation between both the subjective and the objective world. And then epistemology, how they view truth and knowledge. We talked a little bit about this last week in chapter 6, whatever chapter we did for qualitative research, where the authors went into postmodernism, positivism, post-structuralism, the epistemology. So quantitative research is informed by scientific realism and positivism, and then qualitative research is more informed by more diverse epistemologies and more diverse understandings of how we come to know constructivism, other ways to understand the world around us. And epistemology, the authors talk a lot about how mixed methods are informed by pragmatism, and that kind of also represents this pluralism to how both of them can be mutually informative. So views about human behavior. So this on this chart, it has for qualitative research, understanding that humans are very contextual, social, situational. Much quantitative research can understand that as well, but since it is confirmatory, that is why we spent all that work going over the different ways that quantitative researchers control for potentially confounding variables. So while quantitative researchers might acknowledge the presence of extraneous variables that impact all of us, they try to control for them, whereas qualitative researchers use that as part of their analysis, just in a different way. So the research objectives. So in quantitative research that is confirmatory, description, trying to find causal explanations or correlational relationships, prediction based on some of those statistical models that they can use for analysis. And then qualitative research, description, understanding, exploration. And then mixed research has multiple objectives. And we're going to get into that in this chapter too, about some of the main research purposes that are associated with mixed research. And just the general interest. So for mixed research, connecting theory and practice, again, with the pragmatism, understanding some of the nuances behind causation that we might see, whether they be related to the individual or the localized setting. So the nature of observation. So in quantitative research, it is more controlled. Of course, most quantitative research in educational settings does not take place in a laboratory. However, it is more controlled in terms of how extraneous variables are controlled for. And qualitative researchers is always in the natural setting and not manipulated. And then mixed research is multiple settings. So for the sources of data, so in quantitative research, it's super important that you identify your variables. They can be numerical variables or categorical variables, but making sure that those variables are clearly stated, and that they can be measured and quantified and used for statistical analysis. In qualitative research, we talked about this last week. So things like interviews, observations, open-ended questions, documents, and then mixed research is going to use multiple types of data. And quantitative and qualitative can use multiple types of data as well. But in mixed research, there must be a component of quantitative data and there must be a component of qualitative data. So there needs to be variables, and then there also needs to be one of the 6 methods of qualitative data collection. So again, the nature of the data is variables, words, images, categories, and then a mixture. So for analysis, and we're going to be getting into analysis, we did analysis for quantitative. So that's, of course, statistical relationships among variables. And next week, we are going to talk about how to analyze qualitative research and mixed research. So we will get into that next week. And so again, in the results and the final report, so this is something that you'll be seeing in your article critiques as well. In the quantitative, having those statistical reports guiding the finding section. And then in qualitative research, letting the results from the data that's collected, whether it be narratives or interviews, including that in the write-up to substantiate the author's findings. So in mixed methods, one thing that the text talks about are some of the different ways that you can design a mixed method study. So the first thing to consider is the time order. Will the quantitative and qualitative data be collected simultaneously or concurrently, or sequentially, meaning that it's a phase study? In the first part of the study, you collect a certain type of data, and then the second time you collect another part. And then the other part is the status. So it could be equal status where the qualitative data is equally robust as the quantitative data, or where one design is more pronounced than the other, dominant status. And so in the text, they talk about some of these symbols. So the first one for status, if it is all caps, that means that that is of equal status. If it's dominant status, the one that is the secondary source will be lowercase. So here they're equal. You can see they're both capitalized. And this one, the qual is dominant because the quant is lowercase. This is how this author does the abbreviations. For me, when I talk about it in abbreviations, I say qual and quant and add a T to the end of the abbreviation for quant. So you can put in the chat what you prefer. That just helps me distinguish it, qualitative with the L and quantitative with the T. And then the arrows and the plus signs represent the time order. So the plus is concurrent, meaning that they're happening simultaneously. And then the arrow means that shows you the order. The first one's happening first, and then the quantitative second. So these are some of the different designs that researchers can use. So for those of you who are proposing a mixed method study for your research proposal, these are some considerations you can talk about in terms of your overall design and how you will structure it in terms of the time when the data are collected and the status of the quantitative component and the qualitative component. And do make sure, this is something that I put in a lot of the feedback, that you have your research questions. You have a research question that addresses the qualitative component and a research question that addresses the quantitative component. And then the chapter also talks about some research purposes for mixed methods design. And I think that this is particularly helpful. So in research, there used to be something called the paradigm wars, where quantitative researchers and qualitative researchers were in a debate in terms of which design was better. And this chapter kind of talks about that a little bit as well, not in terms of the paradigm wars, but talking about mixed methods. Researchers tend to think that this design is the best. I much more prefer to think about design as most appropriate for the research at hand. So depending on what you're trying to find out, I think that should drive the research design in terms of which one is the best. So if you are proposing a mixed methods proposal, do think about the research purpose and how that connects to why you have chosen mixed methods. So it might be complementary, where you are trying to enhance or elaborate the results from one method. So this could be something like, it could be a secondary study to a quantitative study to add on to that quantitative data with also some qualitative data, or vice versa. Another one is triangulation. And triangulation is a term that you will maybe see in your qualitative article critiques, but triangulation is a research term that is related to validity, internal validity of the research findings related to the data that were collected. And so triangulation might be a mixed methods purpose, that you are trying to find some type of corroboration from previous methods. So complementary is trying to elaborate on previous findings. Triangulate is trying to enhance the validity of previous found studies by perhaps adding on a complementary design or method. Development, to use the results to try to inform the other method. So if a particular phenomenon has primarily been studied in the qualitative arena, trying to develop that body of research and literature on that topic in the quantitative field, you might use mixed methods to do so. Initiation, to try to understand the paradox and the contradiction that might exist from the results of one design to the other. And then expansion, to expand the different range of inquiry into this topic. So those are some of the different purposes, and you can use some of this language in your proposal if this is what you are proposing. So I wanted to give you an example of a mixed method study. So let me take you to the study here. So this study was about, the study was about trying to increase the retention rate of students who had been in the juvenile detention system and who were returning to school. So trying to increase the retention of students being able to remain in that school setting. And so in this study, they were trying to rely on the power of mentorship. And so they were trying to humanize these students who are re-entering the school system by having them develop a relationship with an adult in the building, through having the students write a personal letter to the adult, and they found some really good results. So we're going to watch the video in a moment so you can hear from the researcher's point of view. But I just wanted to walk you through and point out a couple of the things that we've talked about in this class and what you might see in a mixed methods research paper. So here you can see here in the number of participants, and this one was in different phases. So you can see study 1 and study 2. So there you can kind of see the sequence of the time. So here you can see the method, the participants, and design. And then this was a randomized control. So here you can see the different conditions that they have, like the control, the student treatment, then student treatment plus the letter. So here you can see the timeline, the phase, and when the treatment was given, and then what they looked at in terms of recidivism, the discipline citations those students experienced. So this part was the quantitative component. This was the framework for the letter that they wrote. Let's see here. Now, they also included a qualitative component where they asked the students what was most important to them. So they gave them this closed-ended survey. So this component of the survey would be quantitative because you can only choose, it's not open-ended. However, they did make it qualitative because they added this component where they could choose one, and then they would talk about why that was important to you. So here you can see, this is what you'll often see in mixed methods or in qualitative research and in the papers, where you will see quotes from the participants. So here you can see these are some of the qualitative responses that they got for students. Here you can see some of those here. And then here you can see some of the quantitative data, the recidivism rate for students in the control group, the student treatment group, and then the letter group. So you can see that the intervention that they planned was quite effective. So let me go back so you can watch the study and hear from the researchers. So again, an example of mixed methods.
Adolescents face many, many different kinds of challenges. There's trauma, there's basic needs, there's academic challenges, there's instability in home lives, in neighborhood circumstances. But a strong, trusting relationship with an adult, it's not a panacea, but it's a foundation.
We are trying to understand what happens when children try to go back to school. So they've been in the juvenile justice system. They're trying to return to a traditional school. We were trying to think as social psychologists about ways to intervene so that more students can complete the high school diploma.
We elevated kids' voices. We asked them about their goals and values, who they are as a person, and what they would want an adult in school to know about them. We asked kids to nominate who might be an adult in school who could make a difference for them, and then we shared that information with that educator. We were trying to orient the child towards a positive relationship with that person, and that adult towards a positive relationship with that kid.
A lot of that has to do with building positive adult relationships where students feel protected, listened to, cared for, and heard. And so all that feeds into a sense of belongingness and feeling like this is where I can be successful. Someone here cares for me, someone here is guiding me, someone here is concerned about my success.
What you're trying to do is help teachers to see a student and not just a kid who is justice involved. We're not trying to reduce bias. We're trying to sort of think about the ways in which bias might operate and then making bias less likely, taking it offline, so to speak.
It's focused on building a relationship between the person responsible for the academic learning and the learner. While educators have worked in a system that has failed youth, that has failed them, and sometimes seen in our society as a failing system, nobody signs up every day to go to work and fail. And so sometimes you actually inspire and motivate adults to bring their best self to the success of one student.
In the control condition, 69% of youth recidivated within that period by the end of the next full academic semester, and that is a tragic and sobering statistic. In the treatment condition, where the letter went to the adult, and we tried to reorient the adult to see this person as a child, not a criminal, then the number was just 29%. It was a 40 percentage point reduction.
We are really eager to try to understand the boundaries of this. What can we do to actually improve it and to expand it so children can have a better transition and ultimately to have a better life.
Okay, so I think that you all will find that really interesting. I know a lot of you, just in the discussion so far about mixed methods, will see how a topic like this is perfect for mixed research because they have that strong quantitative data to show the power of the intervention, and then the qualitative data to help expand that and talk about why it's so powerful. So just one chapter this week, and I'm looking forward to hearing all of your thoughts and insights about mixed research.